Campers, it's me, Ari Lehman, the first Jason Voorhees. From Friday the 13th, I'm here with AJ, and he's got the juiciest slice ready for you. It's dripping with blood. Jason never dies.
What makes a horror film kill memorable, terrific, even in some way profound or poignant? Let's explore. Thanks for checking this out. If anything about it trips your fancy, please like, subscribe, and share.
Oh, yes.
Without further ado,
don't be afraid of me. I'm Helen Cooper, Harry's wife.
survivors seeking safety from an ongoing disaster make for strange bedfellows as an assemblage of disparate on-edge people are thrown into a single location, one that none of them own, nor do any of them even know the true occupants, so no one has any implicit established authority over the property.
And they talk about these windows. I can't see a damn thing.
Everyone is reacting in his or her own way, but stress is ubiquitous, and tetchiness is running high.
There could be 15 million of those things out there. That's how much good these windows are.
A wiry ball of frenetic energy, Harry is practically bouncing off the walls.
Why don't you do something to help somebody?
A battle of wills and ideologies will play out, and marital issues might decide where Helen's alliance falls. There's one thing they can all agree on.
Here I have it. Drag a couple of those chairs together. There's a socket over here.
The television might have been referred to as the idiot box, maybe still is, but in a crisis it proves an invaluable source of information, nor so it would seem.
You better watch this and try to understand what's going on. I don't want anyone's life on my hands.
Peevish Harry is just keeping it real. This might be one of those instances when keeping it real goes wrong. There's only one chance to strengthen or squander goodwill, and with big heads trying to call the shots, well, goodwill might already be shot, blown, or whatever you want to call it.
Is there anything I can do?
I don't want to hear any more from you, mister. If you stay up here, you take orders from me, and that includes leaving the girl alone.
Since they can at least agree it's to their best interest to suspend the bickering a moment for sake of watching the news, they settle in to get a snootful. If any among these people had the gift of gab, the ability to build on mutual benefits, things might go differently than they ultimately play out. But big heads tend to knock together without reaching consensus.
This is the latest disclosure in a report from National Civil Defense Headquarters in Washington.
They probably have ideas that will be confirmed, but that doesn't make absorbing the hardest truths any less difficult.
It has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
So, the dead have risen and no one knows exactly why. All that matters is they're aggressive and represent a societal disaster of more epic proportions than any earthquake, volcano eruption, or hurricane, because it's in no way localized, and is, in fact,
Some kind of mass murder is going on everywhere.
so the phenomena is prevalent, happening all over.
A widespread investigation of reports from funeral homes, morgues, and hospitals
So much to process, this would be a discombobulating information overload.
has concluded that the unburied dead are coming back to life and seeking human victims.
The kind of outrageousness that, if not experienced firsthand, would be hard to comprehend or take seriously.
When this emergency first began, radio and television was advising people to stay inside, behind locked doors for safety.
So much would challenge the status quo. It would be hard not to question if all of reality was unspooling before their very eyes.
Well, that situation has now changed, and we're able to report a definite course of action for you.
This is one reason it would be easy to cling to any possible available lifeline, since it keeps a foot planted in reality. That safety awaits if you can just reach that place, those professionals and supplies.
Civil defense machinery has been organized to provide rescue stations with food, shelter, medical treatment, and protection by armed National Guardsmen.
This was when most were not yet clued into how badly governmental institutions can fail in a crisis.
Stay tuned to the broadcasting stations in your local area for this list of rescue stations. This list will be repeated throughout our news coverage.
So it's not laughable that these folks would watch this and conclude the recommendation their best gamble, granting them a focus hard to argue against.
Look for the name of the rescue station nearest you and make your way to that location as soon as possible.
Seeing a path to attain much-needed aid is one big carrot and stick.
We have to try to get out of here.
He said the rescue stations have doctors and medical supplies. If we could get care in there, we could get help for her.
The talking heads on the TV really drive home the importance of seeking professional help, too, ramping up the suspense in regard to the afflicted little girl, currently in the basement dying.
But first, let me stress the importance of seeking medical attention for anyone who's been injured in any way.
In this situation, the unknown would be torture for a parent.
We don't know yet what complications might result from such injuries.
How bad has your kid been hurt?
Good advice, Doctor. Now, how about the...
Helen seems hesitant to give too much of an answer, reluctant to reveal an inordinate amount at this juncture.
basic complications? Well...
It's right there on the tip of her understanding what infection could mean. The possibility that, much like rabies, once beyond a certain point, there's nothing that can be done. But she and Harry are still encapsulated in a force field of denial, the hope their daughter isn't too bad off.
Look, you go down there and tell... Now, Judy? Yeah, you tell Judy to come up here and you stay with the kid, all right?
It's no wonder that the ominous specter dangling over them, the uncertainty, the underlying truth hanging there as if right on the periphery of understanding, contributes so much tension that Helen is forced to ignore all the inner roiling by projecting an air of calm when she's as much of a coiled spring as her husband, only in spite of it all is able to exude a lot more chill, maybe wise enough to see there's no value in getting too worked up. It won't change the circumstances.
Did she ask for me?
She hasn't done anything.
I don't understand.
Baby.
In an instance like this, worry for one's child would likely supersede fear for self, but denial is the inoculation that keeps her disposition cheerful. What the little girl says, especially in light of what she's undergoing, is heartbreaking.
It's Mommy.
I heard. I'll come back down as soon as I find out what they want.
Thank you, Judy.
But Judy won't be back. The group hatches a plan. And things go badly awry, terribly kerflooey, and totally off the rails. And Judy and her man Thom are casualties of the fallout, reduced to crispy fritters.
Come on, come on.
My ticket's gone.
The young couple ending up torched means a lot of things, but one thing in particular: barbecue. With their plan of escape stymied, spirits are low, that layer of denial not quite as thick. Well, everyone's spirits except for Ben's, who hasn't lost his vigor to continue on despite the tragedy, and he quizzes Helen about the vehicle they abandoned.
You said those things turned your car over. You think we can get it back on its wheels and drive it? Where is it?
Hope waning and emotionally drained, she seems to be despondent, in a bit of a downward spiral.
We were just trying to get to a motel before dark.
It's like she's verging on a disassociative state, barely keeping herself collected.
Seems like it was pretty far away. Seems like we ran.
Forget it. It's at least a mile.
A stone-cold Harry has practical concerns.
You're gonna carry that child a mile through that army of things out there?
I can carry the kid. What's wrong with her? How'd she get hurt?
And what's eating at them, really chewing them up, other than the knowledge of what the ghouls will do to them if given the chance, comes spilling out.
One of those things grabbed her.
Bit her on the arm.
The sad truth is that Helen and Harry should be with her, but they still hold fast to the hope she's only ill and not dying.
What's wrong?
Who knows what kind of disease those things carry? Is she conscious?
Barely.
That's the real crux of it. They have no real idea what the consequences of a bite means. This would be the time to assume the worst, but denial sustains. The meager hope they can reach help, and she can be saved.
Just how long it may take to kill off all the flesh eaters, so long as the heavy rain...
Is the fuse box in the cellar?
It isn't the fuse. The power lines are down.
Harry sees things with the kind of total unquestioning clarity that fuels blind faith.
Helen, I have to get that gun.
Helen is thoroughly over his unwavering bad attitude.
Haven't you had enough?
Maybe not so sure of his odds if he acts alone. Harry is desperate to convince her of the importance of him taking charge.
But 2 people are dead already on account of that guy.
But she won't budge.
Take a look out that window, Trinket.
With a lot of activity going on inside, the zombies want in on the party. And soon the survivors are under total besiegement. With Ben in a spot of trouble, Harry sees his opportunity.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You want to stay up here now? Helen, get the cellar.
Ben's a bit of a scrapper. This won't do.
Get the cellar now. Move!
Showing he has reached his limit with the weaselly little man, Ben suspends his already stretched and strained humanity and commits a brazen act of, I'll call it harm prevention. A poor campaigner, were Harry a hopeful politician, seems unlikely he would ever make it beyond a primary. Sometimes when you test the waters, you drown.
What can happen when keeping it real goes wrong?
In regard to Ben, moral fiber is an interesting and convoluted thing, because not only is it subjective, it often tasks a person with weighing when acts that could be perceived as wrong are necessary and therefore right. Did Ben have to shoot Harry? I think it was likely in the remaining survivors' best interest.
Well, I'm sincerely glad to hear that, for all our sakes.
Fatally wounded, Harry is driven to go to the real reason for all his anxiety, the little girl he should have been positioned beside all along. Entangled in zombies, Helen is stuck at the window. Until Barbara, emerging from a near catatonic state, sacrifices herself to give her a reprieve. Only it proves a noble but pointless gesture. The hell she escapes into is so horrifying. The last vestiges of Helen's hope and ability to cope are stripped away in an instant, and she is left shattered. A response seemingly born of total despair and defeat. All she can do is stare on in complete unadulterated horror.
Oh, baby.
Not only facing the fear she has been dreading most, that she would have to experience the worst loss a parent can experience, she has to confront in real time that her daughter has not only perished, but reanimated into just another of the ghouls coming after her, and it's too much to stand. Leaving her weak, at a loss, and so unable to process that her will to fight is zapped away, as if by a lethal bolt of lightning. Even as the Karen Ghoul, now armed, having selected a tool of destruction, closes in on overwhelmed Helen. She's seemingly paralyzed with shock, grief, and terror, right up until the child zombie is upon her. At the mercy of an unthinking thing that used to be her precious little girl, a living dead creature running purely on instinct, there is no mercy. Helen seems totally aware as the blade of the trowel crashes down unabatedly. Until all the life has been stabbed out of the poor woman. Shortly thereafter, Ben, the final survivor out of the 7, finds himself in the basement, and since the recently dead are sure to rise, he's forced to finish off dear Helen. Some exits are extraordinary because they are an affront to polite society, the notion of decorum, and good taste in general, and in so being, challenge what can even be considered entertainment, a provocative stance, since it implies for such a film to merit value, and needs to rise above being merely entertainment, a task George Romero and his collaborators were up for in gusto, when their collective effort manifested this timeless gem of a film. Where taboo and shock meet in a grungy farmhouse basement to dispatch a caring mother, in one of the worst ways imaginable, this one is lurking like a zombified girl child quick to brandish a masonry trowel, and looking to satiate its appetite for human flesh. Even today, Helen's demise grabs you by the short hairs and yanks mercilessly. Judging this one in the context of the time it was made, this movie death had to be a real shocker for audiences in the late 60s. It would be one thing were the violence off screen, but exemplifying the action in all its gory and brutal glory, what a slap in the face to anyone who thought film decorum would hold. This is when a showstopper and a heartstopper are one and the same.
I don't know.
Seeing as how Night of the Living Dead is a film that saw creative truth even at the cost of flouting accepted norms and conventions, it could dare to blasphemy in any number of ways, from toppling moral certitudes to besmirching the sacrosanct image of the mother figure by having an essentially good mom, through a single failing, see the collapse of her family. Even if the man, the father figure, was tasked with being the physical protector, in the eyes of a child, oftentimes mom is the vanguard, the main source of safety, succor, and security.
Mother is the name for God on the lips and hearts of all children. Do you understand?
The film doesn't fault Helen. In fact, it wants us to view her as a normal woman doing the best she can with what she has. Only it refuses to take pity on her for her plight, instead taking the stance that no matter her spine or integrity, or the cruelness of it all, she wouldn't be spared the terrible indignity of dying by her child's hand.
It's hard for us here to believe what we're reporting to you, but it does seem to be a fact.
With decades of shocks pushing extremes into ever more twisted territory, it's hard to put in proper perspective how gobsmacked the audience had to feel when the zombified little girl did away with the child's own mother. Was it even patricide at that point? A zombie is the definition of a single-minded automaton, so probably not. Whatever it was, audiences weren't accustomed to such a shocking escapade.
I don't know.
Romero and his production had to realize they were broaching the deeply uncomfortable, the unthinkable. We're basically jumping right into the thick quagmire of the extremely taboo. I say this because they held back in a very real sense, by having Karen use a masonry trowel to dispatch Helen, rather than have her attack with her teeth. How would an undead ghoul know from anything other than instinct? And wouldn't the zombie instinct be to bite? I suppose the argument could be posited that she filled up on Harry, and her appetite was momentarily sated, which would suggest the creatures have an instinct to kill, even when it isn't to fill a need. But I believe it more likely the production were hedging their bets, realizing they were already leapfrogging over many boundaries. It was one thing to depict her gnawing away at Daddy Dearest Harry. To have her bite Helen to death would have maybe gone a tad bit too beyond the pale. Sometimes it's better to dilute the bizarre boundary-pushing elements.
Whatever you say. Scared cat.
There's a lot of incentive in racing up to the edge, but not outright going over it. Offensive but not too offensive inspires a lot of lucrative word of mouth. In regard to storytelling, the stranger actions of the Karen creature could be attributed to the fact that the ghouls are undead, were not right off the bat fully fleshed out, so to speak, the rules of their behavior not yet entirely established. It's easy to take for granted that in the film's early days, the word zombie had yet to be appropriated from Haitian tales of those enslaved through voodoo.
They are not men, monsieur. They are dead bodies. Dead? Yes, monsieur. Zombies.
Poor souls turned into mindless workers used for menial labor.
The living dead. Corpses taken from their graves. For me to work in sugar mills and fields at night.
That would come later, when imitators sprang up, and Night of the Living Dead emerged as the progenitor of an entire subgenre, and an ongoing cultural phenomenon.
Remember you let me watch Night of the Living Dead when I was 8? So now I wake up every night standing in the middle of my room scratching the air and kicking?
Everything will be alright.
So I think I'm being attacked by zombies, and I start screaming, "Do you want to make out?" And I make out with it.
This is a film that does a terrific job of making the whole world feel lopsided, topsy-turvy, off-kilter, and like a black and white drug trip, replete with horrific and challenging imagery. Where other films shied away, it embraced the macabre and gruesome in service of exposing the flawed nature of humanity, and in a way theretofore unseen.
I don't know what it is. She feels warm. Maybe it's shock.
The approach emboldened other filmmakers, who recognized a horror film could be a pulpit for messaging obscured by allegory, parable, and symbolism. How was this accomplished?
Yeah, but I didn't know who they were, and I wasn't about to take any unnecessary chances.
Of course not, Harry.
Putting realistic characters at odds in a situation so shocking, there's no obvious solution.
We'll see who's right. We'll see when they come begging me to let them in down here.
How people react to incredible stress falls on a spectrum, and Helen and Harry were on opposite sides.
Let them stay upstairs. Let them. Too many ways those monsters can get in up there.
Helen kept her cool, an observer, waiting to act until problems arose, whereas Harry was so full of nervous energy, he couldn't help but be a catalyst.
That's important, isn't it?
What?
To be right, everybody else to be wrong.
What do you mean by that?
Marital disintegration contributed much to the foul mood.
We may not enjoy living together, but dying together isn't going to solve anything.
Helen cared a great deal, and contained a well of empathy and compassion her husband lacked, making her able to see beyond their family's needs, and recognize the benefit of teamwork.
Those people aren't our enemies.
Revealing her strength of character, her motherly nature extended beyond Karen to others. Harry was facing a lot of inner demons, obviously at odds with his wife before calamity came knocking. The trouble in Paradise seemed to arise from personality conflicts. One given to knee-jerk reactions. He behaved poorly due to lack of control. His daughter was sick. He was at ongoing loggerheads with his wife. And he was thrust into an untenable situation with another man who refused to respect his authority. And everything he tried backfired on him.
I dragged you out there and feed you those things!
The debate over which man was right as to their best course of action, the more likable Ben or the obnoxious Harry, is ultimately moot, since rescue arrived in the morning.
Jesus, Devlin, get up here! Nick, Tony, Steve, you want to get out in that field and build me a bonfire?
Barricading in the basement for the night was likely the most optimal choice. But so what? Hunkering down upstairs and staying quiet could have delivered the same result. What was really their undoing?
Is one of the world's foremost authorities on space science and technology.
Willard. I saw a sign that said Willard.
Any moment.
It's only about 17 miles from here.
The culprit was very well the hope of salvation. The news bolstered the notion of escape, even the need to seek help for the injured and bitten. Thus this boils down to whether it was ever in their best interest to abscond from the farmhouse. All things considered, I don't think so. Simply because help was out there didn't necessarily mean it was worth pursuing. The thing of it was, a big reason why those ghouls were drawn to the farmhouse in the first place was all the action undertaken in a foiled escape attempt, which literally led to throwing an undead barbecue that would clearly be such a big ado, it would have been the scuttlebutt among the living dead for some time. That even after such a failure, Ben would still be so motivated to find a way out, it exposed his obstinacy. I mean, does he have a date? If it's not too dangerous, go. Otherwise, it's maybe better to hunker down and wait out the light, even if that means being stuck with a repellent dwarf like Harry.
We look into a safe place, and you're telling us we gotta risk our lives just because somebody might need help, huh?
Yeah, something like that.
Since attempts to bug out came at such a steep cost, bugging in was probably the wiser choice in regard to preserving life. Nowadays, you would likely require confirmation that a journey to a rescue station would be worth your while, the risk likely outweighing the benefit, since you'd know, even if you reached one, it would probably be overcrowded and undersupplied. Ben, bolstered by the promise of help, was too single-minded, but then there's a lot of power in false hope. The problem is that it forced Harry's hand.
Get up here, man!
The little man saw a chance to step up as a human being, or an opportunity to seize his heart's darkest desire, and he chose the latter without hesitation. He knew the clapback would be fierce if he failed, so was it worth the risk? Probably not, since at the time he still believed Karen needed to be saved, but he was too stubborn to back down. Even if he was entirely right, in his heightened state, his way of going about things blew it for everyone, because no one wants to believe the irascible bombast is the voice of reason.
How are we going to know what's going on if we lock ourselves in this dungeon?
Ben was only moderately less pushy, but he came off better by comparison, so it was far easier for him to get the others to rally around his ideas, even Helen, who saw him being staunchly proactive, in his desire to get all of them to help, while Harry lagged behind with his wish to retreat and hide.
We are staying down here, Helen.
Since they had no idea Karen's fate was sealed, looking to get out had merit.
It's obvious our best move is to try to get out of here.
See, no obvious solution, no clear right path. And everything they tried still horrifyingly led to a young mother falling into the hands of a reanimated effigy of her own daughter. This exit exists at the grand intersection of texture, depth, and nuance. Not to mention that for the time, it was very gory and disturbing.
I'll take good care of her, Helen. She's all I have.
There is a sinister methodology to Helen's arc. Hers a journey that ends in total darkness, as if the last flame of hope was extinguished at the crossroads of her final confrontation with cruel fate. This is one where even the undeserving die in the worst ways. Without cooperation, chaos will ensue. Even with cooperation, there are no guarantees. Welcome to the zombie apocalypse. Night of the Living Dead is a flick that had a production as fascinating as the groundbreaking and monumental film was itself.
I know what I'm doing.
What did it say?
Nothing.
The brainchild of a motivated group of friends, they pooled money and divvied up tasks based on individual talents. Each having contributed $600 of seed money, Marilyn Eastman took the role of Helen Cooper, while Carl Hardman, her business partner and later companion, took the role of Harry Cooper. A real trooper, Marilyn also supplied writing and makeup duties, among other things. It's interesting that for all the acrimony they summoned on screen, she and Carl were a real duo, their partnership only ending with his death in 2009. An interesting factoid, Carl was the father of Kyra Shong, the actress who played Karen, and Marilyn was her godmother, showing how close their families were. Don't trust Wikipedia when they claim Marilyn and Carl were married. Whatever their relationship in their later years, they never wed.
Well, we're safe now. It's boarded up tight.
What about Tom and Judy?
They want to stay up there and let them.
Well, I've about reached the end of the rope, so I won't leave you dangling. Thanks for humoring my ramblings. Please share any refutations, opinions, accusations, japes, or other ideas in the comments below. And please join me for whatever I'm up to next time. Bye now!
Bye, creepy man! Keep it creepy!
He's a weird guy. Goodbye.
This place is ridiculous.